They fight like no species we've ever encountered, an Arcturian officer reported to Zexkull. They don't follow any known tactics. Of course they didn't. Humans had been developing their own ways of war, isolated from galactic influence. Everything they did surprised their enemies. On the surface, Eric's team reached the control complex. Using the access codes stolen years earlier during Operation Phantom, they entered the facility. The few guards they encountered were quickly subdued with stun weapons. Humans had no desire for unnecessary killing. Grid control room ahead, Eric's second-in-command whispered, "Heavy security." Eric nodded. "Phase suits to maximum. Go." They shifted further out of normal space, becoming ghost-like as they walked straight through the solid security doors. The Arcturian technicians inside the control room looked up in horror as humans seemed to materialize from thin air. "What are you?" one technician gasped. "Your worst nightmare," Eric replied as he placed a disruptor on the main control panel. "But we don't have to be." Surrender. In orbit, the battle had turned decisively. With human ships virtually immune to Arcturian weapons, while their own cut through enemy defenses, the outcome was becoming clear. Several Arcturian vessels had already surrendered. Others retreated, breaking formation. "The defense grid is down," reported the tactical officer on the Freedom. Captain Johnson's team was successful. Admiral Harrison gave the order he had waited years to give. "All ships target the Arcturian flagship, disabling fire only." Precision beams struck the massive vessel, disabling its engines and weapons without destroying it. Within minutes, the ship carrying High Commander Zexkull and the Arcturian leadership was helpless. "Open a channel," Greg ordered. Zexkull's silver face appeared on the screen, his expression one of disbelief and anger. "You have lost, Commander," Greg said simply. "Surrender your forces, or we will be forced to continue." For a long moment, Zexkull said nothing. Then, slowly, he nodded. "We surrender." The Battle of Arcturus ended not with the destruction of an enemy, but with its surrender. Humanity had proven its point. 1 month later, representatives from across the galaxy gathered on a neutral space station to sign the charter of the new Galactic Alliance. The Arcturian Empire was no more. In its place, a coalition of equals formed. President Kelly Rodriguez signed for Earth. Beside her stood Lisa Daniels, now 97 years old. Lisa had been a young diplomat when the exile began. Now she lived to see its end. "Did you ever imagine this day would come?" Kelly asked her. Lisa smiled as she watched representatives from 100 worlds sign the document. "I hoped. That's what humans do best. We hope, and then we make that hope real." The barrier technology was dismantled throughout the galaxy, with safeguards put in place to prevent any species from ever being isolated again. Earth ships now traveled freely among the stars, no longer ghosts or nightmares, but partners in a new galactic age. In a quiet moment during the celebration, Admiral Harrison found himself standing next to a young Arcturian diplomat. "Why didn't you destroy us?" the Arcturian asked. "After what we did to Earth, you could have." Greg looked out at the stars visible through the station's viewport. "Because that's not who we wanted to become. Your people feared what humanity might do if we joined the galaxy. You were right to be afraid, but for the wrong reasons." He smiled at the confused Arcturian. "You feared we would be conquerors. Instead, we became liberators. You gave us a century to think about what kind of species we wanted to be when we returned to the stars. We chose well." Across the galaxy, the story spread. The tale of the imprisoned world that had broken free and then broken an empire. Not through cruelty or vengeance, but through determination, innovation, and hope. They had exiled Earth from the stars, and humanity had become their greatest nightmare. And their greatest teacher. The Arcturus system blazed with the light of battle. Thousands of ships filled the space around the Arcturian homeworld, the largest fleet gathering in galactic history. The Arcturians had called in every vessel, every ally who remained loyal. This would be their final stand. Admiral Gray Harrison studied the tactical display aboard the Freedom. Facing him was an armada 5 times the size of his own fleet. "They still outnumber us," his first officer pointed out. Greg nodded. "But numbers aren't everything. Begin deployment." The human fleet spread out in a formation no alien tactician had ever seen before. Smaller ships moved to the front while the larger warships held back. On hundreds of alien vessels, commanders watched in confusion. "What are they doing?" High Commander Zexkill asked from the bridge of the Arcturian flagship. "Their formation makes no sense." It made no sense because humans had developed tactics during their isolation that no one in the galaxy could predict. For over a century, they had studied the limited information they had on Arcturian battle strategies. They knew exactly what the enemy expected. And they would do none of it. "All ships, engage phase shields," Greg ordered. The technology that had allowed humans to breach the barrier had been adapted into a defense system. As the Arcturian fleet opened fire, their energy weapons passed harmlessly through the human ships. The phase shields didn't block the attacks. They shifted the ships partially out of normal space. "Impossible," Zexkill whispered as his weapons had no effect. Captain Eric Johnson led a small team aboard the stealth ship Spectre. While the main battle raged, they approached the Arcturian homeworld from the opposite side. Their mission was the most critical of all, disabling the planetary defense grid that protected the Arcturian leadership. "Approaching drop point," the pilot reported. "No detection yet." Eric checked his gear one last time. His team of 6 would drop to the surface using personal phase suits, technology no Arcturian could imagine. "Remember," he told his team, 30 minutes to place the disruptors and get back to the extraction point." They dropped silently through the atmosphere, their suits making them virtually invisible. The Arcturian capital city spread below them, its spires reaching toward the stars. At its center stood the massive control complex that housed the defense grid systems. Back in space, the battle had fully engaged. Human ships now returned fire, their weapons cutting through Arcturian shields with ease. The smaller human vessels darted between enemy ships, causing confusion and drawing fire away from the main fleet. "Impossible," he whispered. "The barrier cannot be breached." But the evidence was undeniable. Human ships, unlike any the Arcturians had seen before, were striking with precision and power. Their weapons were advanced, their tactics unpredictable. Somehow, in their century of isolation, humans had not only escaped, but had evolved their technology beyond what should have been possible. "Send all available forces to defend our key installations," Zexkill ordered, "and contact our Federation allies. We need every ship we can get." But when the calls for help went out, the response was not what the Arcturians expected. Several species, including the Velderi and the merchant Belosians, formally announced their support for Earth. Others simply remained neutral, unwilling to fight for the Arcturians after centuries of domination. The Federation, which had stood united for thousands of years, was fracturing before Zexkill's eyes. At Rigel, Admiral Harrison's fleet had secured the system. Human soldiers landed on the Arcturian base, capturing vital intelligence and equipment. Among the prisoners was an Arcturian commander who stared at the humans with a mixture of fear and disbelief. "How?" the commander asked when brought before Admiral Harrison. "How did you break the barrier?" Greg smiled. "You made a fundamental mistake. You gave us time. Time to study, to plan, to build. You thought isolation would weaken us. Instead, it focused us." Across human-controlled space, the broadcast from President Rodriguez continued. Earth ships transmitted it continuously, ensuring every corner of the galaxy heard humanity's declaration. "We do not seek conquest," the message explained. "We seek justice. The barrier technology that imprisoned us must be dismantled forever. No species should have the power to exile another. We demand reparations for our century of isolation, and we demand equal standing in a reformed galactic community." On worlds where the Arcturians had ruled harshly, the message sparked hope. On the Velderi homeworld, Crowds gathered in the streets, celebrating the attacks on their oppressors. On trading hubs and neutral stations, beings from hundreds of species watched the unfolding conflict with fascination. Humans, the bogeymen of galactic legend, had returned. In a secure chamber deep beneath the Arcturian capital, the High Council convened an emergency session. "We must reactivate the ancient weapons," one counselor suggested. "The humans are still just one species. We can crush them." "Our ancient weapons will not help if half the Federation sides with them," another countered. "This is no longer just about Earth. This is rebellion." Zexkal's voice cut through the argument. "Gather our forces at Arcturus. Every ship, every soldier. If we lose our homeworld, we lose everything." The message reached Earth within hours. Human intelligence networks, planted years earlier, monitored all Arcturian communications. President Rodriguez called her War Council together as soon as the information was confirmed. "They're consolidating at Arcturus," she told the assembled leaders. "They plan to make their stand there." General Garcia nodded. "As we predicted, they're falling back to protect their center." "Then it's time," President Rodriguez decided. "Prepare the fleet for the final phase. Arcturus will be the decisive battle." Across human space, the message went out. Ships that had been held in reserve moved toward deployment points. The largest human fleet ever assembled began to form. The war that had begun in secret would now end in the open. Humanity was no longer hiding, no longer contained, no longer forgotten. The nightmare had only just begun. The day Earth announced its return to the galaxy began with fire. 3 Arcturian military bases erupted in simultaneous explosions as human warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel and opened fire without warning. Decades of planning, years of secret operations, and months of preparation culminated in this moment. Admiral Greg Harrison stood on the bridge of the flagship Freedom as it led the assault on the largest Arcturian base at Rigel. His fleet of 20 warships moved in perfect formation, their weapons cutting through Arcturian defenses as if they were made of paper. "All targets hit," reported his tactical officer. "Enemy response is disorganized." The Arcturians had grown too comfortable in their dominance. They had forgotten what it meant to face a truly determined enemy. Their ships scrambled to defend, but they were too slow, too confused. "Broadcast the message," Greg ordered. "All frequencies, all languages." Across thousands of worlds and space stations throughout the galaxy, communication systems suddenly activated. Screens flickered and speakers came to life, broadcasting the same message. "Attention all citizens of the galaxy. This is President Kelly Rodriguez of the Solar Coalition of Earth. 130 years ago, the Arcturian-led Federation imprisoned our world and our people behind a barrier. They believed they could contain us forever. They were wrong. Today, humanity returns to the stars. We offer friendship to all except those who imprisoned us. The Arcturian regime will fall. A new era begins today." On the Arcturian homeworld, High Commander Zexkal watched in shock as reports flooded in from across their territory. Humans, the contained species, the primitive danger they had locked away, were attacking everywhere at once. "All systems operational," reported her first officer, Steve Rogers. "Phase cannons charged. Shield generators at full capacity." Diana nodded. "Begin approach to target." The Retribution moved toward a small station orbiting a distant moon. This station was one of many that maintained the barrier around Earth. Destroying it would create the first permanent hole in humanity's prison. "No detection signals," Steve confirmed. "They don't see us coming." Diana gave the order. "Fire." Beams of concentrated energy shot from the Retribution, striking the station's power core. The explosion was brief but bright, quickly extinguished by the vacuum of space. Where the station had been, only debris remained. "Target destroyed," Steve reported. "Barrier section destabilizing." For the first time in 130 years, a permanent gap opened in the wall that surrounded Earth. Small at first, but growing. Soon, It would be large enough for bigger ships to pass through without needing phase inverter technology. The Arcturian High Council finally convened an emergency meeting. Reports from across their territory could no longer be ignored. Something is happening, High Commander Zexkal told the assembled leaders. Systems are failing. Ships are vanishing. And now a barrier maintenance station has been destroyed. By whom? Asked an elder counselor. Who would dare attack us? We don't know, Zexkal admitted. There have been no claims of responsibility, no demands. The council debated for hours. Some believed it was a rebellion among the subject species. Others suggested a new alien force from beyond known space. None considered the possibility that humans had escaped their prison. We must form a special task force, Zexkal decided. I will lead it personally. We will find these attackers and crush them swiftly. On a mining planet near the edge of Arcturian space, Nathan Brooks led a joint human-Veldari force in an operation that would change everything. The planet, rich in rare minerals, was worked by enslaved Veldari. Thousands of them toiled in terrible conditions, extracting resources for their Arcturian masters. Begin the operation, Nathan ordered. Human ships descended from orbit, quickly neutralizing the small Arcturian security force. Within hours, the entire mining colony was under human control. For the first time, humans had established an open presence beyond the barrier. The freed Veldari workers stared in wonder at their human liberators. The prison species, they whispered. The dangerous ones. Yes, Nathan told them with a smile. Dangerous to those who enslave others. That night, Nathan sent a message to Earth. It was brief but historic. Forward base established. Operation Rising Storm is now active. The message reached General Garcia as he briefed President Hayes on the latest developments. The Arcturians are scrambling to understand what's happening, Garcia explained. They formed a task force, but they're looking in all the wrong places. How much longer can we maintain secrecy? President Hayes asked. Not much longer, Garcia admitted. But that was always the plan. First confusion, then fear. Across the galaxy, rumors began to spread among subject species. Strange liberators had freed a Veldari mining colony. Ships appeared and disappeared like ghosts. The Arcturians, always so confident, now seemed worried. No one spoke the word human yet. But soon, very soon, the galaxy would remember the species they had tried to forget. Strange reports began flooding Arcturian command centers across the galaxy. Ships vanished without a trace. Defense systems failed for no reason. Communication networks experienced unexplained gaffes. For the first time in centuries, the Arcturians felt something they had forgotten. Uncertainty. Another ship missing, announced an officer in the Arcturian High Command Center. The patrol vessel Dornax failed to report in from Sector 17. High Commander Zexkal frowned. Tall and silver-skinned like all Arcturians, he had lived for 3 centuries, but had never seen such a pattern of failures. That's the 5th vessel this month, he noted. Are there any connections between the incidents? None that we can find, the officer admitted. It's as if they simply disappeared. What the Arcturians didn't know, couldn't imagine, was that humans were behind every incident. Kate Morris and her team had tapped into the Arcturian defense network. They could now track every ship and redirect patrols away from human activities. Nathan Brooks had expanded his alliance network. 7 species now secretly supported Earth, providing resources and information. The Veldari proved especially valuable. Their technical skills allowed humans to understand Arcturian systems even better. Captain Diana Wells stood on the bridge of humanity's first true warship, the Retribution. Unlike the stealth vessels used before, the Retribution was built for power. Its hull gleamed dark blue-black, absorbing light rather than reflecting it. Weapon systems lined its sides, derived from both human innovation and reverse-engineered alien technology. We can be, Nathan admitted, but we also value freedom, for ourselves and others. By the time the first Arcturian patrol ship noticed unusual energy readings near the Earth barrier, It was already too late. The ship moved closer to investigate, but found nothing out of order. The captain noted it in his log as a sensor malfunction. No one bothered to check further. Back on Earth, the first new starships were being constructed in hidden shipyards among Saturn's rings. Unlike the stealth vessels used for Operation Phantom, these were warships. Powerful, fast, and designed specifically to combat Arcturian technology. In her laboratory, Dr. Karen Liu put the finishing touches on a new weapon system based on the barrier technology itself. If they can use energy to contain us, she told her team, we can use the same energy to break them. General Garcia stood before a holographic display showing the positions of all human teams now operating throughout the galaxy. Dozens of points of light marked their secret bases and operations. The pieces are in place, he told President Hayes. The Arcturians still don't know we've escaped. When they finally realize the truth, it will be too late. President Hayes nodded. How much longer until we're ready for the next phase? 6 months, Garcia replied. Then we show the galaxy what humanity has become. The Defiance returned to Earth 6 months after it left. Captain Ryan Foster and his crew brought back more than just information. They brought hope. Humanity was not forgotten, but misremembered. The galaxy had turned Earth into a ghost story while growing soft and divided. In the high-security meeting room of the Solar Coalition headquarters, Ryan presented his findings to President Samantha Hayes and the military leadership. The Arcturians check the barrier only once every 50 years, Ryan explained. And they do it from a distance, using automated systems. They're certain we can't escape. General Peter Garcia smiled for the first time in years. Their certainty will be their undoing. President Hayes studied the star maps Ryan had brought back. How soon can we begin? Operation Phantom is ready now, General Garcia replied. Small teams, minimal footprint. We slip through, gather more intelligence, and establish forward bases. 3 months later, Kate Morris stood on the observation deck of a small stealth ship as it approached the barrier. She led a team of 5 specialists, all trained for the mission known as Operation Phantom. Their target, the Federation's central data repository on Taw City. 2 minutes to barrier crossing, the pilot announced. Kate checked her equipment one last time. Her team carried weapons and tools unlike anything from the old Earth. Lightweight pulse rifles that could stun or kill, suits that could change color to match surroundings, and most importantly, neural translators implanted directly in their brains, allowing them to understand and speak any language they encountered. Remember, she told her team, we're ghosts. We get in, get the data, and get out. No one can know humans are free. The ship passed through the barrier using the improved phase inverter technology. On the other side, they accelerated toward Taw City, a journey that would take 11 days. At the same time, 5 other teams left Earth on similar missions. Nathan Brooks led a group to contact potential allies among species unhappy with Arcturian rule. Other teams targeted military installations, communication hubs, and resource centers. The silent invasion had begun. On Taw City, Kate's team moved through the massive data center wearing stolen maintenance uniforms. The neural translators worked perfectly, allowing them to respond naturally when spoken to. The aliens never looked closely at the maintenance workers. Why would they? Humans were safely locked away on Earth. Security systems bypassed, whispered Lubis, Kate's tech specialist. We have access to the central core. Kate inserted a small device into the data terminal. It downloaded schematics for the barrier technology, faster than light travel systems, and Arcturian defense networks. Everything humanity would need for what came next. Download complete, Lewis confirmed. 87 seconds. No alarms triggered. They left as quietly as they came, passing alien workers who would never know how close they had been to the dangerous humans from Earth. Across the galaxy, Nathan Brooks made contact with the Veldari, a species that had been forced into service by the Arcturians. The Veldari were slight, blue-skinned beings with large, expressive eyes. They worked primarily as engineers and technicians, their natural skills exploited by their Arcturian masters. "You are from Earth?" asked the Veldari leader, Selna, her voice a whisper of disbelief. "The prison world." "We were never truly imprisoned," Nathan explained. "Only delayed. Now we seek allies who want freedom from Arcturian rule." Selna's large eyes blinked rapidly. "The old stories say humans are violent and unpredictable." The Defiance emerged from the barrier into a star system humans had never visited before. Captain Ryan Foster felt a weight lift from his shoulders as the ship glided silently through open space. Behind them, the barrier closed, sealing Earth away once more. Ahead lay the unknown. "All systems normal," reported Ben Collins from the pilot's seat. "No detection signals. We're invisible." Ryan nodded. "Set course for Proxima Colony. If any place has information, it's a trade hub." Olivia Wright, the intelligence specialist, studied the star charts they had created from old alien data left on Earth. "Proxima Colony is 2 days at our current speed. It's controlled by the Arcturians, but many species visit there." The ship moved cautiously through space. The crew took turns at the observation deck, staring in wonder at the stars. For most of them, this was the first time seeing the unfiltered galaxy. No one said it aloud, but they all felt the same thing. They were the first free humans in over a century. Proxima Colony came into view on the 3rd day. A massive space station orbiting a small rocky planet. Hundreds of ships docked at the station, coming and going in orderly lines. "Scan for communication frequencies," Ryan ordered. The Defiance had been programmed with translations for all known alien languages from before the exile. "Multiple channels detected," Olivia reported. "Most are trade negotiations, some security chatter." She paused, listening through her headset. "Captain, they're not looking for us. There's no alert about Earth or humans at all." This was their first piece of good news. Either the aliens didn't know humans had broken through, or they didn't care. Ryan made a decision. "We need direct contact. Olivia, Ben, you're with me. We'll take the shuttle with altered IDs. The rest of you keep the Defiance hidden behind the 3rd moon." The small shuttle approached the station using fake identification codes that Olivia had created. To their surprise, no one challenged them. The Proxima Colony docking control simply assigned them a bay and welcomed them to the station. Disguised in hooded cloaks that hid their human features, Ryan, Olivia, and Ben entered the bustling trade center. Aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the corridors. Some were tall and thin, others short and round. Some had multiple limbs, others none at all. "Remember, we're traders from the outer systems," Ryan reminded his team. "Keep your faces hidden and let Olivia do the talking." They found their way to a quiet bar area where information could be bought. Olivia approached a small, gray-skinned alien with 4 eyes who sat alone at a table. "We seek knowledge," she said in the trade language. The alien looked up. "Knowledge has a price." Olivia placed a small crystal on the table, one of the few valuables they had brought from Earth. The alien examined it carefully before nodding. "I am Krell. What do you wish to know?" "Tell us about the Arcturians," Olivia said. "How strong is their control?" Krell made a gesture that might have been a shrug. "They rule as they always have. Strict, orderly, but growing soft. They have had no real challenges in many cycles." "Do they speak of Earth?" Ben asked before he could stop himself. All 4 of Krell's eyes widened. "Earth, the prison world." He lowered his voice. "That is an old story